Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report, episode 300. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
300, yes!
Yeah,
we
yeah,
all,
yeah.
we all get party prizes or
For the Trojans.
can't believe we made it this far. Thank you to everybody who
yeah, yeah.
listened to us carrying on because you're the reason.
Thank
Although,
you so much.
truth be told, we'd probably all carry on without you anyway.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And on this special episode, Pound for Pound Box Report,
Well,
truly,
and
if you
interestingly
hear me,
enough,
if you hear me different. I'm gonna say if you hear me differently because this special episode I am breaking in a new mic, so my sound may be a little bit clearer. What you was about to say, Daniel?
I'm about to say, interesting enough, today is actually International Podcast Day. So it's fitting that we crown this anniversary on
Hey,
International Podcast Day.
that's awesome.
I didn't know. Oh,
Ready
the
to
irony.
know. It's fate.
And I'm glad Daniel's here because I wasn't sure he was going to make it because his Miami Heat is currently playing in Game 1 of the NBA Finals against the Lakers. They got a 10-point lead right now, so excuse him if he may be a little bit distracted during the show. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, podcast as well as blog discussing all things boxing. And the motto is: when boxing is good, we'll talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find all the information regarding the show, for the time being, the blog page is the place to go to. P4pboxreport.wordpress.com. That is the link. If you check the top right of the blog page, or if you're checking us out live, just check the description down below. You will find information on where to find us all over social media. When you find us on an RSS feed that distributes podcasts like Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Spreaker, and everywhere else in between. Also, you'll find links to where you can donate. Got a Cash Me and PayPal donation link. Let donation be the best nation, and certainly last but certainly not least, um, link to my online coaching page. I am an online coach with Beachbody.com. I'm currently doing a fitness group challenge, 6 weeks of the work. Um, Next month, wink, wink, nod, nod, Daniel. I plan to transition into doing a group challenge of the one of the new workouts from Beachbody on Demand. 10 rounds. It's a boxing-based program. If you're interested, just hit me up on my Pound for Pound Box. Hit me up on the blog page. Hit me up on my Pound for Pound Box Report Twitter page. That is at P4P Box Report. Or just hit me up on my personal Twitter page, Brother JR76. Let's get things going. So because it's a lot of fights to recap. And plus, I don't want to have Daniel. Shout out to Lisa for joining us in the live chat. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please feel free to mention it in the chat. And also make sure to subscribe, to hit that like button, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Um, a lot of fights this weekend, and what I'm going to do is because there were so many fights, particularly this past Saturday. I'm going to split these up between you Gail, and you Daniel. I'm going to start with you Gail. The highlight card pay-per-view event um, that took place this past Saturday at the Mohegan Sun, featuring the Charlo brothers. Jermall fighting Sergiy Derevyanchenko, Jermell fighting Jeison Rosario, and I'm going to start with you Gail and talk about Jermall. Jermall defending his WBC middleweight title against Derevyanchenko. Uh, I was When we discussed the fight last week, I felt that Derevyanchenko had a legitimate shot to pull the upset, but it was Charlo who got the decision. Very entertaining fight, very tough and rugged fight for both men. Charlo hurt Derevyanchenko early in round 3. Hurt him again, I want to say, in round 8, I know. And Derevyanchenko was tough. He came on at the end of the fight, but the point differential, the early lead that Maul built up was just too much for Derevyanchenko to overcome. Um, Better scrap than I anticipated. Rough and rugged fight. Um, I can argue, Gail, that this is Charlo's best performance since he beat J Rock down at 154 pounds. Um, what did Charlo prove to you in this fight against Derevyanchenko, especially against when you put into consideration how this is the same Derevyanchenko who many people feel beat Triple G and gave Daniel Jacobs a tough fight?
What this proved to me, and should have proved to the rest of the boxing world, is that Jermall Charlo is more than just a big middleweight who can punch. He put on a smart, crafty fight that was also entertaining. Now, a lot of people might not have chosen the word smart and crafty to describe Mal Charlo before this fight, but it was such a mature, assured performance. He didn't need any flashiness. He didn't need the big wind-up knockout. He did it by controlling distance, a master class in controlling distance. And it helped him that Derevyanchenko, if he's got one weakness, in my opinion, he starts slow. He digs himself a hole every fight and crawls out. Now, it can make for really entertaining fights because he starts getting a little more sense of urgency and starts, mixing it up. But Charlo absolutely would not let him do it. And all you needed to see at the end of the fight is to look at both of them. Wouldn't have even had to watch the fight. Derevyanchenko's face was busted up in a way that did not happen against Jacobs and did not happen against Triple G. Meanwhile, you look over at Jermall. He could have cleaned himself up, dusted up, got ready for a GQ photo shoot. He looked pretty as ever. I guess Derevyanchenko hit him a few times, but Charlo took the punches just fine. The best weapon that Derevyanchenko had was his uppercut when he could get close enough to Charlo. But that was so rare. It just wasn't a factor. He always gives a good fight. Derevyanchenko, you never think, okay, he slacked, or, okay, ran out of steam, or, he got discouraged. You would never say that about him. He gets a great, honest effort. He tests guys. He's there to pounce if you make a mistake. But Charlo didn't make a single mistake in this fight. He was absolutely in command. Even though he didn't win every round, you just felt a sense of calm watching him, that this fight was not going to get out of control. Truly, I was very impressed, and I would agree with you, by far his best fight, because in part it was against his best opponent. If I'm anybody else in the middleweight division, boy, I want a lot of money to fight him now, because he's dangerous. He is dangerous in a way that just a sheer power puncher is not, because he's got tools that are very hard to disarm somebody of when they're on, like he was. Really, really a good performance.
Before I go to a follow-up question, I see your comment, Lisa. I sent a link to your email, at least the email that I have for you. Just take a moment to check your email and and just click on that link that I sent you and you can join us and talk the sweet science with us. Going back to you, Gail, follow-up question. Impressive Charlo was, Jermall, in this fight against Derevyanchenko. You mentioned how he put himself in position for a more significant fight, a big name. The question is, at this point, who would that big name be against? Litigation and court battles aside, you still got Canelo, who still can technically fight at middleweight and still a quote-unquote franchise champion. Okay, I see you. What I'll do is I'll put the link here, Lisa, and just click on it and just let me know you clicked on it so I can, or click on it and do so quickly, because what I'll do as soon as I put it in there, I'm going to remove it because I don't want anybody else that I don't know joining us on the show. I don't want no unknown names and possible trolls just jumping in. But yeah, Gail, you got Canelo, who's technically the franchise champion according to the WBC champion, but WBC at 160 pounds. You got Andrade. You got fighters out there like Chris Eubank Jr. You got Jacobs. You got Callum Smith at 168. If you were PBC, what direction would you take him? And I say this keeping in mind that Heyman gave Jermall Charlo an open door to seek a big fight at the end of 2019, and it didn't happen. I know COVID-19 and circumstances kind of deterred that in a sense, but still, the opportunity was there for a big fight this year. It didn't happen. Will he get it? Will he get that big fight opportunity in 2021?
Well, the pandemic gets a say in boxing, especially with the really big names, the top names, who can bring in a big gate, who are fighting opponents who also get a fairly good sized purse, like he should and will. So I think we're going to have to let that play out for the next few months. If things open up and it looks like in the next, say, 6 to 12 months, things are going to loosen up a little bit. There's the potential for fights with an audience. There's the potential for maybe doing it overseas. This is becoming an option for a lot of guys, which I'm sure we'll talk about later in the show. Then they can kind of gauge, all right, who's in play. Because at this point, Charlo, needs to earn a pretty good paycheck. And, right now that's a tough call, except for on the pay-per-view model. Now, I haven't seen any reports of the numbers. I'm going to guess they aren't going to be huge, but the truth is, I don't think that really matters that much as long as the promoter and the network are able to cover the note on the fighters' purses. I think they would have been very happy with a break even, looking toward the future. But, was he going to have mandatories? How are the sanctioning bodies going to deal with him? Maybe he takes a mandatory that's essentially a gift, right, from the sanctioning bodies. I don't think he'd mind too much. The big question I have with a Charlo Canelo fight, which I do think is off on the horizon, but it's out there. Where is Canelo going to land? And is Canelo still a middleweight? That's a legit question. If Canelo isn't going to continue at middleweight, with the exception of perhaps a Golovkin fight, well, Jermall's a big middleweight. Does he want to go up to 168? Try to take belts off Canelo at that point. Does he want to play the age waiting game with Canelo, even though they're the same age? Canelo's got a lot more ring mileage on him, a lot. Does he want to wait him out a little longer? The good news is that Jermall, I don't feel any sense of urgency for him to decide this right now. But if I was going to bet some money that I needed to pay my bills, I would bet he takes a mandatory, which he certainly earned, maybe the very beginning of next year. And then we see whether Canelo's on the horizon. And if not, let's see who else is out there that's available, given the PBC Showtime firewall that's between them and a lot of other promoters is also going to be an issue. But for enough money, maybe you've got some of the guys at 154 willing to come up. And he certainly knows who all of them are, and most of them are in PBC's stable.
I say that if he's going to get a fight at 160, he needs to do it sooner rather than later, because as you mentioned, Gail, just looking at as you mentioned, Gail, Jermall is a big middleweight. You looked at him against Derevyanchenko, significantly larger in size than Derevyanchenko. He was, I say, fighter Chris Eubank Jr., then hopefully he can beat him, and that'll lead to a fight against Andrade. Because I think if the fight with Canelo happens, I think it'll happen more at 168 pounds than 160. Um, I'm going to give you a bit of a reprieve, Daniel, um, to enjoy the game for the time being. I want to introduce a guest from who was on the show a good while ago. Um, Regular fan, follower, watcher of the show, the live show especially. And I say that because I've been so lazy and so tardy about putting the audio up for the podcast. My apologies on that. But Lisa Bales is joining us live. She was in the chat. She's now here on the live show with us. Open your mic, if you will, Lisa. Um, I'm going to ask you to talk about other fights, but I want to get your opinion on Jermall's win over Derevyanchenko. What did you draw from his win, and where do you think he goes from here?
Yeah, hey, how is everybody doing this evening?
Doing good, doing good.
Good. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Good.
Good. Hi, Gail. How are you? It was a really good fight. I was impressed. Um, and I kind of knew I predicted that it would be a 10th round TKO KO, but he showed a lot in that fight. He showed a lot. The maturity, and I see him. I would love to see him really fight like the Triple G's and if not Canelo, and see where he goes from here. But he's come a long way. I remember the Charlos when they were like in their early 20s, and I'm seeing the growth and the how they've evolved, and but he really impressed me with the Derevyanchenko fight. It was a lot of grit. He I saw a lot of maturity in his style, and he got hurt a few times, but he got through it. It takes a lot.
We talked about middleweight, the middleweight and Maul. I'm going back to you, Lisa, and talk about the junior middleweight Mel. Uh, we previewed his unification fight against Banana Rosario. I felt that if uh, Mel fought smart, he would win. But if he tried to force a fight and try to make an outright brawl, he could have some difficulty. Well, um, I have to say here, Lisa, that this is quite possibly Mel's best performance of his career, as he came out hot, he came out on fire, and dominated early, put Rosario down in round one, hurt him multiple times during the fight. The way he ended it, funky little conclusion with a jab to the body. It's been a minute since I've seen a fighter go down and out from a jab to the body. But overall, Lisa, uh, can't take nothing away from Mel in this performance. He's unified champion now at 154 pounds, and to many, myself included, he's the man at junior middleweight.
Yes, I agree. He's been in my opinion, he's been the most consistent 154 pounder, with the exception of Laura over the last several years. I remember him, as I stated earlier, I remember the Charlos when they were on I think it was Jermell. I remember Jermell. That's the first Charlo I remember first. And but I remember him, and I've seen how he's grown as a fighter. His style has changed a little bit. He's more aggressive now than before. He used to be more of I would say like a boxer, but he uh he showed, you know, I would just say he's been a consistent 154 pounder, and he's stuck at that in that class, in that weight division, and has been consistent, has always stayed in shape, and so I knew if it wasn't gonna be, Laura's gotten a little older now. I always said it would have been Jermell.
Um, given his status as the kind of that dude right now, 154 pounds, WBC, uh, uh, um, IBF champion. Um, where do you think? Where do you see him going? Do you want him go full out unification? Well, let me take that back. He's WBC IBF champion now, but his mandatory is Erickson Lubin. They fought before. Mel knocked him out in a round. Um, Lubin just defeated Terrell Gaucher to was essentially in an eliminator to earn mandatory status. Given what you saw against Lubin and given what you saw against Mel, say they fight a rematch, how do you see it going? Based on each of the past fights, I think the fight will go longer than a round, but I think Charlo will beat him again.
I agree. I don't think he's seasoned enough yet, and I just don't. I saw him get hurt by what's his name again?
A lot of people
Jay
pronounce it Gausha, but it's Goucher, I think it is.
Boucher. Yeah, I saw him get hurt, and again, and I'm not saying anything about that. It's a fight. You can get hurt. But I don't see him being a Charlo is a vet now at this point, a young vet. So I just don't I just don't see it. Maybe it'll go 5 rounds, but I don't I see him getting beat again. I agree with you.
I want to thank Unrivaled. I want to give a shout out to Unrivaled. I want to give it a shout out to Pigeon Mike Tyson for joining us on the show. You get a lot of love, Lisa, from the fellas in the chat that
Hey
you're on
guys.
with the rest of us. Both of them said hello, Pigeon
Hey.
Mike and Unrivaled. I'm going to you, Daniel, to talk about to this next fight. Um, this is also on that big undercard. Daniel Rahman, who was former unified champion at 122 pounds, he lost the belt to Akhmadaliev, MJ Akhmadaliev earlier this year. Uh, Fought Juan Carlos Payano. Rahman got the decision, Daniel, and got the decision by pretty comfortable margins on the scorecard. If you saw the fight, question. I was watching it once I got home from work Saturday evening. Um, Am I wrong here in thinking that even though Roman got the decision, he really didn't deserve it? Because I just thought that Payano, particularly over the first 2/3 of the fight, he outworked him.
No, it's fair to say it. It's fair to say that it was a lot closer than the scorecards mentioned. Because even though Roman was landing good combinations, he was attacking Payano to the body and did hurt him late in the fight. Payano stood his ground and also kept coming. It wasn't a fight where you see that Payano was being outclassed. He was right there. The main thing about it, he was pretty much right there in the fight. But the problem is, unfortunately, sorry, I have a little bit of a sore throat. Uh, the fact that he got hurt pretty late probably hurt him well at the end, because the perception then feeds him. You probably lose the fight because you didn't see Roman that hurt throughout the fight. But it was a lot closer than the scorecards mentioned. 122 may be a division where the weights, when it comes to Roman, may not affect anymore, but I don't think a move up to featherweight would work for him right now. A move to bantamweight, though, might actually suit him better.
Do you think he can make 118 at this stage of his career?
It's going to be tough. It'll be tough at this stage of his career, but I don't think that he can do featherweight. I don't think he, right now at this stage, I don't think he has the power to handle featherweight.
Um, I I'm watching this. Okay, I'm thinking. First and foremost, I believe I had said that I believe Payano won this fight, and to me, I got no good vibes from this from Roman. Um, I'm almost inclined to think that maybe that Roman is on the decline, uh, because this wasn't the Payano I saw even in the loss against Medallia. This was not the Roman that I saw unify the belts against Doheny, TJ Doheny in one of the better fights of 2019. Um, the level of performance dropped off significantly in this fight, and this is not going to cut it. Just like last week, Gail or Gail and Daniel, when we talked about Lubin, that performance against Galche is not going to cut it in a rematch in a possible rematch with Jermell at 154 pounds. This performance by Payano is not going to cut it at 122 pounds. Not if he's talking about fighting a rematch with Akhmadaliev. Not if we're talking about a rematch in a fight against a Luis Nery, who we're going to talk about in just a few. This ain't it. He has to improve. He has to go back and reevaluate himself and what he did, because I don't care if he got his hand raised in victory. I don't care if he put Payano down in the last bout. He has to be better. He has to do better. And speaking of Luis Nery, I'll go to you, Gail. He also fought on this card. We talked about this fight against Alameda. No, scrap. No, yeah, no. Yeah, let's talk about this fight. I'll talk about John Riel Casimero to close everything else before we get into a discussion about Josh Taylor. I was watching this fight, Gail, and to me, Nery won, in my opinion, and but it seemed like Nery was just like in second gear throughout the bout. He didn't have to do much to get the win, in my opinion. He has a belt now at 122 pounds. He's been frowned at by the boxing folks and media and whatnot because his mess trying to make weight at 118 and staying at that weight too long when he wasn't supposed to be in that weight division. When you look at the 122-pound division with the aforementioned Roman, the aforementioned Akhmadaliev, other fighters at 122 pounds, where do you see him standing in the junior featherweight division?
He's still got a lot of questions to answer. He answered a few. Number one, can he make weight at 122? Praise Jesus, he made weight at 122. Didn't seem to be a problem. So he's in the right place. Number two, he's with a brand new trainer. He is working with the Reynosos, Eddie and Chepo Reynoso, and Canelo Alvarez's gym here in San Diego. So anytime a fighter gets in with a new training crew, new ways of going about things, new skills to test, everything's unfamiliar. And it does take a while for any fighter, no matter how good they are, to settle into a new routine. Third, he was out of the ring a long time. Now, most fighters have been out of the ring, except for the few that got into the bubble and just a handful of exceptions. Nearly everybody's been off a bit, but he's been off a little longer than most. So you had the ring rust, you had the new weight division, you had the new trainer. I'm willing to give him somewhat of a pass, but I'm alarmed by a few things I saw. You're right. He sleptwalked through a lot of that fight. That concerned me. It concerned me in the same way I'm a little bit concerned about watching Oscar Valdez working with Eddie Reynoso. Eddie has taught Canelo Alvarez to be a very patient fighter in the ring. And it worked for Canelo. But does that same training formula work for guys who are come forward Mexican style, if you want to call it that, aggressive, offense-minded fighters like Oscar Valdez, like Luis Nery? I'm thinking to myself, has Eddie Reynoso neutered La Pantera? I'm not sure it's the best fit. It might be an issue of wanting Nery to work on those skills specifically focused, and then integrating into the whole offense minded approach to a fight when he has a more dangerous opponent. So they're working on stuff. If it was ring rust, if it was testing himself in the new division, okay, but we won't know that until we see a few more fights. So the jury is out on Nery.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I'm going to go to this last fight, going to you, Daniel. Jean-Real Casimero scored one of the bigger upsets in 2019 when he disposed of Zolani Tete in 3 rounds over in England. First fight since that upset took place this undercard. Um, fought Duke Mikah. Everybody knows that Casimero. There was a lot of talk about him fighting anyway. In April, that fight was postponed, put on the shelf due to COVID-19. Subsequent attempts to try to renegotiate the bout failed. Casimero moved on to fight Mikah. I'll rely on you heavily because I didn't see the fight in full. I was at work. I just saw highlights of it and can't find the fight anywhere on YouTube. And for those who didn't see this pay-per-view, is my understanding that they're going to replay it this coming Saturday on Showtime. So if you didn't see the pay-per-view or didn't want to shell out the $74, which is it's understandable. And I like the Charlos and I like Casimero and all these fighters, but I ain't paying no damn $74 for no pay-per-view. Not for that quality, nah. But talk about Casimero and his win over Mikah, stopped him in 6 rounds. And after the fight, he was talking a whole lot of smack about one Mr. Monster out in Japan.
Oh, that was not a fight. That was a beating. It wasn't as bad of a beating as another fight in that card, but it was a pretty heavy beating. Casimero did not have any issues with Mikah whatsoever. He came in, he beat the living crap out of him with shots to the head, shots to the body, and he showboated while doing it. He did kind of like a Michael Jackson little woo on the first knockdown. And then he started to doing one of those one-handed legs, widespread leg push-ups when the referee stopped the fight. This kid has confidence, and the way he fought is going to be very interesting to see if they're able to renegotiate this with Inoue, to see him try the same attacking style versus somebody with Inoue's range. But this fight was no issue whatsoever for Casimero. Like, he looked good. It did what it was supposed to do.
Going to bring everybody into this discussion about Casimero specifically because I mentioned that he was talking a whole lot of trash, and I wrote about this for Three Kings Boxing. Shout out to Three Kings Boxing, head of Three Kings Boxing 2K, head of media relations Bo, who's been a past guest on the show, senior writers Bakari, Jarrell, as well as myself, and the editor, the one and only Red. I wrote about this for Three Kings Boxing. You can check it out on threekingsboxing.com. He went off during the post fight. I may have missed the fight, but I saw the post fight, and I'm going to ask everybody's thoughts on this in terms of Casimero in a way. He's like, excuse me for the language. I preface this by saying, excuse me for the language. He's like, "You're no monster. Motherfucker, you're no monster. I'm the monster. You're nothing but a Japanese turtle." Inoue must have been watching because he responded on Twitter. He didn't name Casimero out specifically, but was like, the tweet was, "You will not hit me with those wide punches." So there's underlying beef here. And let's suppose this fight does eventually get made, and I'm going to bring everybody into this discussion. Your thoughts on this? Because the pre-flight hype, I could see it being something. The fact that in a way went to social media to respond, that says something. And I'm not saying Casimero would win, but he'd make it entertaining. Your thoughts on this, Lisa? Start off this conversation quickly with you, Lisa.
Um, yes. Listen, I think he's a real character. I enjoy Casimero. I enjoy watching his fights and everything. And I'm unfortunately I'm not on Twitter. So but my stance is, well, um Inoue seems to be pretty quiet. I'm not I've never known him to be very vocal about a lot of things, so I don't know if that got under his skin a little bit, but
Oh, it
Casimero.
did. It did, Lisa. Lisa, excuse me for interrupting. When Casimero won the belt in this November last year, November 2019, the first thing he did was call out for a fight against the Inoue. Inoue basically, who had recently signed a deal with Bob Arum, he went to Twitter and said publicly, Bob Arum make the fight. And then that's how you had this proposed fight in April that eventually got postponed and didn't happen. And you saw Casimero move on, but continue on, please.
Right. And actually it's kind of a good thing that it's postponed. The only reason why I say that is because he's coming off of a broken eye socket. So you need that to heal properly. He needs that to heal properly because he won't want to go through what Kell Brook. I'm sorry to say it, Kell Brook, because I really don't think Kell waited long enough. And the thing is that that's going to be a really good fight. But I do see Inoue being more technical, and he's been in there with better competition. But Casimero, he's a live dog in there, so I'm not gonna you know, I'm not gonna rule him out. But Inoue is more methodical. He's real technical. So you know, but this other guy, Casimero, he's a lot of fun. I enjoy him. He's a dangerous guy.
I'll go to you, Gail and Daniel. Um, what do you think? Your reaction to Casimero goading in a way in this fashion? I mean, you've never seen fighters uh, uh, purposely go out of their way to talk this much shit about the monster.
I love it. I love his attitude. He does it with a laugh, with a smile on his face. I have no doubt he means it, but he isn't doing it in a nasty way. It's like, come on, man. He was chattering away at him. He did say he was as slow as a Japanese turtle, and then he wanted to say something else. And he turns to Sean Gibbons, his manager. His English is great, but not 100% there. So he stumbled over whatever other insult he wanted to leverage, and he couldn't get there. And he says, fucking English. And he starts laughing. How do you not like a guy like this? He's just sort of burst in. He's not afraid to take chances. That's the kind of guy that actually does have a chance against a master craftsman like Inoue, because it's hard to plan for somebody like Casimero. The problem is, even though he won his fight in pretty spectacular fashion, he's so wild. He's so wild. He doesn't always plant his feet. He's off balance. He throws crazy wild shots, but he has power in that division. And when they land, they really land. So he's capable of these shocking, spectacular knockouts. And let us remember, he took Zoleni Tete apart. So it's a fight would be fun to watch. I don't know how long it would last. I think we'd enjoy every darn minute of it, and we wouldn't care if it went 3 minutes, 6 minutes, 30 seconds. The lead-in would be fun. And Inoue is a little more stoic of a personality, but he's a very proud guy. He definitely has that same kind of mean streak you see in people like Bud Crawford, who have a quiet demeanor and then they get in the ring and whoa, they just flip the switch. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I don't know how you say Mr. Hyde in Japanese, but that's where it is right there. And hey, he's got a belt. He's starting to attract fans. Great Philippines versus Japan matchup. That's an all Asian classic right there. To me, it falls in the what's not to love category, because who else is there for Inoue to fight? Chances are he's going to be the ace. Well, chances are he is going to be the A side in every single fight, and chances are he's going to be the A+ side in every single fight. But Casimero is that wild card that, even should it result in a beatdown, is going to be fun. So sign me up for some of that.
Your reaction to all of this, Daniel?
This actually reminds me because of an episode of a YouTube show that I like. They talked about this recently. It's called Puppet History. And they actually just talked about, interestingly enough, a person that has been dubbed the greatest Japanese swordsman. Gentleman by the last name of Musashi. And the way he got his opponents is he got in their heads. Like, he did things like scheduling a duel, then showing up late, putting a headband, like just basically pissing people off. And they get into their heads, and ultimately that got him to win a lot of battles. Mr. Inoue should take heed to the lessons of Musashi, because you don't see that reaction for Inoue in social media that he got from Casimero talking that smack. But it's also, what it also tells you is that both sides wanted this fight. It just so happens that, unfortunately, like Gail mentioned, the pandemic had a vote. And this would be a fight that this would have been right now at this stage, the perfect New Year's Eve fight at the Tokyo Dome. You put Inoue there and Casimero, that would have been a perfect fight to do. They might still try, but it will probably be like with less fans of what they want. But I like the fact that Casimero is not showing any fear, because you have to remember, a lot of opponents gave deference to Inoue, particularly after the way he just dismantled Payano in the World Boxing Super Series. Because we were all waiting for that eventual fight between him and Tete. And Inoue was waiting for that fight between him and Tete. Unfortunately, Casimero threw a big wrench into those plans, and now he has to deal with it. And it's an interesting situation now, because it's not, you can't say, oh, they can't negotiate, can't do this and that. They've proven they can negotiate. They've proven they can sit down on the table and break bread. You just have to do it again.
Move on to this last. I was going to talk about another fight on this card, but I'm going to skip it because consideration of time. I was going to talk about Figueroa and Vasquez, but I'm going to skip it. Let's move to this last fight here. I'm going to you, Gail, and then we can have a larger conversation. Josh Taylor, who unified the belt, beating Regis Prograis in the final of the World Boxing Super Series 140-pound tournament last October, had his first fight since that. Fought his mandatory from Thailand by the name of Khongsong. Defeated him in the first round. When I watched it at work video, I didn't see what a punch landed, but I saw a second feed on Twitter. It was a body shot, a left-hand body shot that put Khongsong down and out. Okay, 1 round knockout, fine. The mandatory admittedly had very little chance to win if we're really going to be honest about it, Gail. Now that that's out the way, Ramirez, the likelihood of that fight was the likelihood that that fight will be next. When, and your early thoughts on who you have.
Watching that fight, which was more of a blowout than I even expected, I actually start to think, having a franchise champion so they don't get stuck in these ridiculous, lopsided, mandatory defenses is starting to sound like a better idea all the time. And I hate that. I hate this whole franchise champion, but it's finally starting to make sense to me because mandatory situation is just, it's so subjective. It's frequently a complete waste of time and exhibit shown here. I understand that Bob Arum, after the fight, after the Taylor wipeout of Khongsong in one round, called Lance Pugmire, formerly of the Los Angeles Times, now the head boxing writer at The Athletic, called him while Pugmire was trying to sit down and watch Dorticos and Bradis and wanted to rave about what a ridiculous fight it was, how angry he was that they were wasting time on this when he could have been making the Taylor and Ramirez fight, blah, 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 blah. First of all, a guy that's almost 90 calling to bitch, I think that's the best thing ever. Pugmire apparently had to call Mike Coppinger and say, I'm supposed to be watching the Dorticos fight, but I got Bob Arum on the phone. Could you cover me? And then he let Arum keep ranting. So that's the fight that needs to be made. It's a true unification fight. Thank goodness it was an easy ride for Taylor, but even with a mandatory that you're expected to dominate as the champion, you can get hurt. There are all kinds of crazy things that can happen. We have a pandemic situation. No future fight is guaranteed when you're an athlete at that level. So it was just such a waste of everyone's time. But let's hope that they bought a few months. Taylor's fine. They get that fight on the books, whether they've got to do it in the bubble, whether they can get a crowd. Taylor has said multiple times he would love to do the fight in Scotland, outdoors on the grounds of Edinburgh Castle in his hometown, where potentially you could have an outdoor seated audience safely. Although you go much further in the year, it's going to be winter in Scotland and ain't nobody wants to fight outdoors in the winter in Scotland. So if that's the case, we're really talking about next spring. And maybe we are anyway because of the pandemic. That's a fight that needs to be made. It's obvious they're all heading that direction. I'll tell you, after watching Taylor dispatch Khongsong, even if he was a, complete patsy tomato can in the ring, I have to favor him in the fight. And certainly if the fight is placed in Scotland, you have to make him the favorite. We have had a lot of fighters go over to the UK, American fighters, on enemy turf and win. Terrence Crawford beat Ricky Burns. Can Ramirez do the same? He's definitely got a shot at it, but he will be the underdog in the fight. But I think it'll be a damn good fight either way.
Go to you, Lisa. Taylor got rid of this Khongsong guy. Easy work. As 2K from 2K, the head of 3K, said in a private chat, Khongsong, his name should have been Ding Dong the way he got taken out. Early prognosis on Josh Taylor and Ramirez for all the belts at 140 pounds. Should the fight happen next?
I got Josh Taylor. I've always had him. He is very talented to me. You don't see a talent like that often. And I just don't get me wrong, Ramirez is good. He's a very rugged guy, very strong, that body work is something from Ramirez, but Josh Taylor is just he's elite to me. And especially with him winning the World Super Series, that was something. And he's fought some really good competition, but so has Ramirez. Don't get me wrong, they both fought Postal. And I like to use Postal as like how I could judge them too. I thought
Yeah, like a barometer.
yeah, barometer. I thought Taylor did better against Postal to me, in my opinion, than Ramirez did. But like they say, styles make fights. Styles makes fights. And I'm team Josh Taylor. I don't know. I don't know. It's just that he just the movement, he's just really crafty. Really crafty guy. But now the issue would be is where is it going to be held? That would be an issue. Like you said, if it's in Scotland, Ramirez would definitely be the underdog and that. And I don't care where the fight is. I got Josh Taylor.
What say you, Daniel?
Unfortunately, the main thing when it comes to this fight, it is going to be mainly based on location. Because unfortunately, I have this feeling that Ramirez is a fighter that mainly depends upon location. Like I said, based on the performance on his last performance. So, as far as skill set, I would probably say I would lean more towards Josh Taylor, but never ever discount a fighter who wants the will to win. Ramirez may have that will, but everything depends mainly upon location. Because this isn't a Terrence Crawford Ricky Burns situation where we all knew that Burns got a whole lot of gift decisions in the UK, and Bud just basically snatched his soul to win it. This is not that type of fight. Josh Taylor is actually the real deal. If the fight's in the UK, yeah, Ramirez is going to be the definite underdog. If the fight's in the US, particularly if it gets as close, like if they stay in Las Vegas, or if Top Rank decides to put it anywhere in California, then you have a probably fair shot when it comes to Ramirez, and that might actually help him out, even with no fans. Everything depends, though, on how we're going to judge this, because obviously the news story, everything depends upon that.
Right. I think Ramirez and his camp will do any and everything to keep the fight in the States, particularly in Vegas, because he's not going. The days of him continuing to fight in Northern California, that's done now. Particularly this fight. This fight is going to happen. If it happens in the States, I believe it's going to happen in Vegas. But to Lisa's point, I don't think it's going to matter. I know during the broadcast, Tim Bradley made a point of noting that pointing that even though Taylor is the taller fighter, they have the same arm length. And he mentioned how Taylor sometimes gets seduced into standing in the pocket and fighting when he doesn't need to. And because of Ramirez's style, arm length plus style, that could pose some problems for Taylor. But I'm in agreement with Lisa here. I think Taylor is a really, really good fighter. I'm not going to say special A class yet. I will if he beats Ramirez. But early on, if I had to make a favorite right now, I would go with Taylor, probably by decision. But we'll talk about that fight more once it finally gets made. Let's move on to talk about some news here. I had one docket on the story, but since Bud Crawford's name has been mentioned uh, um, so much this evening, let's talk about him. We talked about weeks ago, a few episodes back, about how there were discussions about Bud fighting one Kell Brook. Um, and I'll go to you on this one, Lisa. Well, uh, the homie Big Cool Jarrell over at Three Kings wrote about this with Three Kings Boxing. Apparently, the fight has been signed. No date or a specific location has been made as of yet, but it looks like that Crawford will indeed fight Brook in his next outing. Your reaction? I know a lot of serious boxing fans will look at Crawford and give him some serious side eye. I will put myself in that because for me, look, Crawford is elite. He's still hanging on as my number one pound for pound fighter in the world, but to fight Brook is unsatisfactory. He could have done better. There's Ugas out there who could have got this fight. He could have got that fight for the cheap. There's Sean Porter out there who would have, I'm pretty sure PBC would allow him to go across the street to fight a Bud Crawford. There are other welterweights out there. Do you share my disappointment that we're going to see Bud in the ring against a Kell Brook next? I'm like, no, yeah. Do better, Top Rank. Do better, Crawford.
Well, I'll just say this. It's not the sexiest fight in the world. Let's just say that. Kell Brook is, he's not a welterweight anymore. We all know that. It was hard for him to make it, he said in the past. So he was a big welter. And he had been campaigning at 154. Not doing a lot there, but he's had a few fights there. Bud is not getting the best fights because this is just my opinion. He's being frozen out. And they waiting for him to some slippage. And then everybody gonna want to make the fights with him. That's just my opinion. Because I don't care, as a fan, I don't really care what platform you fight on or what network. This is boxing. I'm not really concerned about beefs and whatever. It should be what's best for boxing. In any other sport you get that, but why can't we get it here? So that's just I think Ugas would be a good name, or even a Lipinets, but I know Lipinets is getting ready to fight somebody. But what about a Josecito Lopez or whatever?
Well, forget all that. Thurman. Thurman was the one who called him out. It was Bomac who went on Facebook and talked about how Thurman was asking for $10 million. I'm like, okay, you may think that was a lot, but there was an offer on the table. Can follow up on that. You don't put that out there and then turn around and fight Kell Brook. I'm sorry.
Well, you know what, Michael? I don't follow none of this social media stuff. I think all of that stuff should be handled behind closed doors. I know that that's the way now, but I'm a little more old school. I don't like a lot of that stuff. You know, that should be handled behind closed doors. What people, purses and everything. That's going to be, reported or whatever in the media or whatever. But as far as all that other stuff, it's just a bunch of BS to me. But I know that's the new way how they doing things. But this is just my opinion. I think he's being frozen out. I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. They freezing him out.
My only pushback is, I have a couple of objections. One, if they wanted the big fights, they can make it. If they really wanted it, they can make it. And like I said, there are opportunities to fight PBC fighters out there, and they're not taking it. That's number one. Two, the argument that Crawford is being frozen out. I can understand that to a certain point. Problem is, Crawford he played a role in that. Nobody told him to re-up with to Arum for a long-term deal. He could have waited things out. He could have signed with Arum, but not towards a long-term deal. Or since and all the name was going to be across the street, he could have signed across the street.
But see, that goes back to what I said earlier. I mean, I get what you're saying. As a fan, I don't care about who you this and that. Why are these people not working together? I don't care if this one's that. Why the champs should be fighting the champs, point blank. And maybe what do you call them? A mandatory here and there, or voluntary here and there. That's how it used to be. I don't understand this stuff. That's just my, who Bud signs with. That's not really my really concern or business. You know what I'm saying? I mean, am I wrong for thinking like that? They should be working together.
Here's the thing. You're making too much sense. You sound too much like right.
But from a fan's perspective, not from a business owner's perspective, protecting their assets. And fighters are the inventory of businesses called promoters. And unfortunately, in boxing, a loss damages your property. In the UFC, which is part of the reason you do get tighter matchups, you do have more eyeballs on it, is because for whatever reason in the UFC culture, losses don't take, guys with losses do not take as much of a hit. So you have a guy like Bud Crawford who doesn't have a loss going in. If he does take a loss before he renegotiates a new contract or goes looking for a new promoter, he just lowers his value. So there's no way in hell he's going to do that unless the risk versus reward is worth it for him. So if he can get $10 million to fight, which is definitely a nice pay increase for him, then maybe it's worth the risk to take the hit up front on his record. If he wins, and the parlay pays off for him, then the gamble is worth it. But if he can't get a top level opponent, and in the pandemic gets a say, that's the big problem right now. They don't have a gate. So what's the promoter supposed to do? Get the money out of thin air? And again, go back to the contrast between the boxing model and the UFC model. So in the UFC model, the promoter, first of all, is a monopoly. Dana White, if we're talking UFC, he banks probably 3/4, 80% of the revenue, and the fighters take the rest in their purses. Boxing's the opposite. Boxing is the opposite. They're free agents. They negotiate. They get much more money, way more money. Think about it. Do you see top-level boxers saying, ooh, I'm challenging Khabib. I'm challenging McGregor. I want to fight Masvidal, in the UFC. No, because they take a pay cut. It's McGregor and those guys saying, I want to fight with Canelo, So it's all about money. And that's disappointing to us as fans to see that get in the way. Of course, we don't love it. We would like them to just be athletes, just fight for, their pride, the excellence of the performance. But this is how they make a living. And they have a very short window to maximize their income. In many cases, really it's the main money they're ever going to make the rest of their life. And they don't know if that job is going to end tomorrow because they get injured. So can't blame them, really. That's the problem. So, yeah, Crawford is on the wrong side of the welterweight fence. because PBC has the monopoly. So then the question is, does he want to entice any of these guys at 154 to come down and fight him? Does he want to do a catch weight? Hey, I would be all about a Crawford Thurman fight, even at a little bit of a catch weight. Or if Thurman wants to come down and challenge, great. Let's see what happens there. I'm kind of liking that. We still have that prospect of Crawford and Porter. And I think Porter would force the issue. He's kind of a throwback in that way. He's so aggressive. But again, where's the money coming from? If you need a gate or you need pay-per-view to fund the purses, right now that's not available. So here we are. Who's the best of the rest? Kell Brook? Don't love it. I think Kell is, never going to recover to the form when he beat Sean Porter, which was an amazing fight. And it wasn't that long ago. It was 6 years ago, but he really ended up making a big mistake fighting Golovkin. He gets his face broken, and then he fights and gets his face broken on the other side. He is really damaged. He's been up and down in weight. That is rough on you. I don't think this fight's going to be any different than Crawford versus Amir Khan. But if you're a Crawford fan, if you think, well, if the alternative is no fight at all and he just sits there rusting away, better than nothing. I think that's the way we have to look at it. We don't have to love it.
Your thoughts on this, Daniel?
Lisa's mindset, yeah, as a fan's perspective, I agree with Gail. Should be the right one. Like the champions should be able to fight the champions to go and comes to undisputed. But unfortunately, that's one of the consequences of boxing being a mercenary sport. The mercenary is going to go to whoever's going to pay him the most. And that's going to be in the promoter. The promoter's going to be the one that offers the check when it comes into it. And obviously that's made also with some promises. We have to remember, like, I think Bud signed that deal with the thought of him being the one in the same manner, the top ranked man, like the way torch got passed from Oscar to Manny. He thought it was going to get passed from Manny to him. He probably didn't expect Manny's camp to have a completely different idea. And now, yeah, he is stuck in a way where you're not going to have a lot of opponents. A lot of even halfway decent opponents are with the PBC, are without him. And for all intents and purposes, that's where he's at right now. Unless he finds a way to have Bob Arum and Al Heyman actually sit down to each other and not just have to be the absolute last resort for each man to make business, that's the only way it's going to work. Because, yeah, I get like they have to work out different things. Are you going to do the Las Vegas bubble, or are you going to do the Mohegan Sun bubble? Are we going to do this on ESPN, or are we going to do this on Showtime or Fox? There's a lot, there's a lot of things that can be talked about, but it is what it is, unfortunately. Yeah, I would have loved to see this fight 2 or 3 years ago, before Kell Brook unfortunately faced Triple G. But it is what it is at the moment, because unfortunately Bud has very few options. You can do is win this out, be a showcase fight, and then hope that Spence Garcia turns it to such a close fight that they do it again, and then that puts people like Thurman or Manny in the bind. Where, yep, they kind of need an opponent. That's pretty much all you can do right now.
Yeah, indeed. Like I see, look, I'm not a fan of this fight. It seems to me, how can I put this? I'm not a fan of this fight. Um, as you mentioned, Daniel, you got Spence out there fighting Garcia. To me, ultimately, that is the fight. But Crawford, he doesn't put himself in good standing with a lot of folks fighting the likes of Kell Brook. And let's hope that following what many people will feel a eventual win against Brook, he can step up the level of competition because, yeah, again, I'll reiterate, I think he can do better than this, and I hope he will. Moving forward, let's move on to some heavyweight news. This news broke today, and I'll go back to you, Daniel, to talk about this. Um, One more story I didn't mention in the chat. I'm gonna talk about it, and I'll go to Lisa for that. Um, it was anticipated that uh, uh, Fury Wilder, the trilogy, was going to happen on the 19th of this month. But, and I call this the casualty of COVID indirectly, and you'll see why in a bit. Um, but Aaron, in an interview with ESPN earlier today, said the fight is not going to happen on the 19th. Why, you may ask? Because it's in conflict with football, college and pro to be specific. Because of the pandemic, college football schedule has been pushed back. Games did not start until mid-September, and because of certain conferences having their schedules put back and having their games put back, including conference championship games, many of the conference championship games, when it comes to the Big Five conferences, ACC, SEC, Pac-10, Big 10, Big 12 specifically, Conference USA as well. A lot of those conference championships is going to happen on the 19th. There's NFL, I believe, while playoff action may happen on the 9th, NFL game on the 19th as well. So mainly because ESPN told him to, Aaron has had to push back or postpone that December 19th proposed date between Wilder and Fury. He's talked about possibly moving it up earlier in the month. The only date I could see is on the 5th, because on December 12th, Aram is promoting a card. Miguel Burchell, Oscar Valdez being the main event of that December 12th card. I wrote about this for Three Kings Boxing. I'm anticipating that the fight is going to be pushed back into early 2021, possibly February 2021. I'll go to you, Daniel, on this. Your thoughts on the fact that let's just put it out there, COVID and football is superseding COVID, football, and ESPN is kind of superseding the sweet science, and even telling someone the likes of the powerful Bob Arum in Top Rank, you can't have the possibly the biggest fight of the year when you want.
Oh, sorry. Okay. You mentioned some of the factors going into it, mainly the fact that some college football is gonna go on against all conventional wisdom, but let's talk about the real reason why this is not happening the way it's happening. Pete, this is one of the few fights that you need fans. You need people in the seats when it comes to a fight like this. You can't have a situation where you're having a fight between heavyweights. Let's talk about the main division that it's being paid attention to by the casual American audience and have it be in front of an empty arena. And I don't buy Bob's idea thinking, oh, it could happen earlier. It's not. It's not. Like I said, they need a crowd
No,
for this
no, it's
fight.
not because it would mean
2021 is your likeliest bet.
right. It would mean um Aram and PBC working, pushing, scrambling behind the scenes to push this up to 2 weeks and earlier, to a date 2 weeks earlier. That's not going to happen.
Exactly, because okay, right now, like I said, the NBA Finals is happening right now in October. You have that situation. You're going to have also a situation. You have a situation because all sports are factored into this. You have a situation right now where nobody knows when the NBA season is going to start, which means a lot of things are going to be pushed back. We don't know first, and also we don't even know if a lot of the college football is actually still going to go on because, like we mentioned, the pandemic gets a vote. Asked the Tennessee Titans recently about those plans, but that's unfortunately there's no way it's going to be early. It's probably going to be, if anything, late spring 2021. They need to make sure they can have at least 50% capacity. And if there's any issues with the NFL, like right now, like I mentioned, Tennessee Titans, where if they wind up having to delay the season 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, so a team can quarantine. If there's an outbreak from COVID on this, that's going to push the Super Bowl back. So that everything plays a factor into this. Not to mention that travel restrictions is going to factor into you know Fury's going to want those British fans crossing the pond over to the US, and depending on who's in the, let's talk real, depending on who's in the Oval Office come January, it's either going to be done as
Oh
an
gosh,
orderly
don't
fashion with a
mention,
plan, or it's going to be a shit show
don't.
like we have right now.
You mean a shit show like the debate last night? Don't mention anything regarding the Oval
We
Office
kind of have to. We have to. That plays a.
In the way President Tang embarrassed us as a nation last night with his performance. Let me stop right there before I really start cussing. Proceed, Daniel.
No, but that's the main thing. Like you have to measure what's going on because unfortunately, this is it's like I said, at the end of the day, you need fans for the fight. This is one of the few fights where you need fans into it. A lot of the fights that we happened this year, it's worked fine without fans, but there's certain few that you can't do without fans. Like there's pretty much a reason why Canelo has not fought this year, and it ain't lawsuit. Is because he makes, well, part of it's a lawsuit. He makes so much money that they need a gate, they need fans to supplement that. And Fury and Wilder are going to factor into that as well because they're heavyweights. That's mainly what it is. So Aaron can say all he wants about, oh, we could push it earlier. You're not going to do it. I'm sorry. Late spring 2021, more than likely is going to be the case.
Sorry, I was on mute. Last story here, and I'll go to you, Lisa and Gail. Um, Within our discussion about Bud and the fight against Brooke, Gail mentioned that interjected the UFC and Dana White in terms of kind of the differences, and noted the differences within her analysis of Crawford and Brooke and why it's happening and why Crawford's not getting the big fights. in response to your question, your point, Lisa, about Bud being frozen out. Um, I mentioned that because over the weekend, um, a UFC fighter who you may know, one Conor McGregor. I know you don't go on, you're not on social media. Well, he went there and started popping off about a fight against Manny Pacquiao. Apparently, there's some meat on this bone, as some representatives for Pacquiao have in the days since um, mentioned that the fight may be a reality. Simple question to you, Lisa, and you can follow up, Gail. How seriously do you take this? Do you think it will happen? And if it does, will you frown on it? Will you be just like cool with it? Will you be indifferent?
Um, I mean, I definitely wouldn't want them to sanction it. It would be like a what do you call those fights? What do you call them?
Exhibition.
Yeah, an exhibition. And I mean, if that's gonna be Pacquiao Swan Song, I mean, and he can make a lot of money, I'm cool with that. Uh, I really don't like when they're sanctioned, like with the Mayweather and the McGregor fight. It was sanctioned for number 50, and I don't really agree with that part of it. But I mean, I don't, Manny Pacquiao's Hall of Famer, ATG. That's not my real concern. But is it gonna happen? I don't know. Because I saw something about Mikey Garcia saying that that fight is not going to happen. That he's
Yeah,
fighting.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we wrote about that as well for Three Kings. That when word of this came up, Garcia, I can't remember the platform where he said this, but he mentioned that they can talk all this stuff about McGregor fighting Pacquiao all they want. Garcia basically said he's going to be the next opponent for Manny.
Yeah, so I'm confused. I
What?
guess Manny has options.
Yeah, yeah. Given your sources, Gail, what have you been hearing about this? Is there any more substance to the fact of McGregor fighting Pacquiao? Is Mikey Garcia correct here in saying that he's going to be the next fight for the Pac-Man? What have you been hearing?
Hey, talk is cheap. Talk is very cheap. And sometimes you assert these things in public to make people behind the scenes think, oh, should we be talking to him? Has he been talking to somebody else? I mean, Mikey is a very smart guy. He's great at manipulating the systems. If he wants to insert himself, good luck with that, Mikey. But the big payday is possible between McGregor and Pacquiao. I think it's as possible as any other fight. The Nevada State Athletic Commission sanctioned McGregor once. He's in box rec. They can do it again. But if McGregor thinks it's going to be another fight like he had with Mayweather, where the two of them were in cahoots all the way through, Mayweather carried him through a few rounds and then lowered the boom. Manny isn't going to play it like that. And first of all, he won't engage in the sort of shit talking lead up that McGregor and Mayweather did, which was just outrageous. Even by their standards, it got really dirty, ugly at times. But hey, they were both in on it. You want to do that, be my guest. Manny won't do
He
that.
could try. He
Well,
could try
he
that
could try.
trash
Oh, and
talking,
he'll
and
try.
Pacquiao would look at him and like
Oh yeah,
smile and be like,
like
hey, yeah,
whatever.
ain't that sweet? Ain't
Yeah,
that
Manny's
sweet?
heard it all. Come on, Manny's just gonna think, I don't think so. He'll laugh him off and he'll let him roll, and he'll be silently thinking to himself, "Thank you very much for selling the fight," just like Loma is saying about Teofimo Lopez. Thank you for talking shit and thank you, selling the fight, much appreciated. Exactly the right attitude, by the way. But in the ring, different story. If McGregor lands a lucky punch on Pacquiao or he pokes him or does something he doesn't like, he will have hell to pay. because at Manny's current condition and age, he's way more dangerous than Floyd, in my opinion. And it could be much uglier for McGregor. Now, if all he gives a damn about is a nice paycheck, it's a stunt fight, people will buy them. They're buying fights with Logan Paul and Jake Paul and KSI. And come on, man. I mean, if there's money to be made and these guys want to engage, I don't begrudge them. Just like we were talking about, these athletes have a very short window of time to make their money. And Manny also was smart enough to say, if it happens, I will do it and donate all of my purse to COVID relief in the Philippines. Manny's focus is beyond the ring to his legacy as he prepares to run for president of the Philippines, which is now not too far off. He's got to be 42 years old to be able to run. And then I think he's got another year or two until the next election cycle rolls around in the Philippines. So Manny's killing time, figuring out what's the best way for me to make money, for me to position myself politically in my home country, go out with a bang. You know, as you were saying earlier, Lisa, all-time great, you know, virtually nothing he can do is going to hurt him too badly now. And frankly, if those two guys take a bunch of money off fools who will buy it, good for them. Have at it. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to get engaged with it. On the night of Mayweather and McGregor, I was watching Cotto and Kamagai in California. So there's a subset of us that don't care to really take that stuff in. But I don't hate it. I don't begrudge them for it if they want to do this. Again, though, the pandemic gets a say. They would certainly make more money with a big gate. But as a pay-per-view, they'd probably make decent money anyway. So, you know, what are Pacquiao's other options without a gate? You know, he always will sell a pay-per-view. He's one of the few true pay-per-view stars out there. Canelo really is one of the others, except that he's, you know, got this issue with DAZN, which of course promised us, you know, no pay-per-view. Oh, how'd that work out for you? So we'll see how that all shakes out. Michael, did you see my note about a new story just emerging about an upcoming fight in October?
No, please do tell.
So apparently the Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz fight that was originally scheduled for October 24th is being moved back 1 week to October 31st and now has a venue that apparently is going to allow fans to attend, the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. And apparently the story goes, the public story, is that by pushing back a week, the Alamo Dome is going to be available and they can perhaps accommodate as many as 11,000 fans in the seats, distanced, and woo, isn't this great? There's also buzz that while that makes a really nice story, the real reason is that Tank is having trouble making weight.
And
Are we shocked? They're giving it another week. Now, what's also interesting is the on October 31st, that is the scheduled date for Alexander Usyk's next fight as well.
Yeah,
And that card.
The date for Usyk and Chisora. It's the date for Inoue and Maloney. And let me just mention as an aside, a bit of also another breaking news here. Michaela Mayer, who we talked about a few weeks back on her debut with Top Rank. She's been barking all summer for a world title shot, and she will get that world title shot on the undercard of Inoue and Maloney, as she will fight Eva Bratnica for the WBO championship, for the WBO world title at 130 pounds. So just a bit of another breaking news.
Yeah, and that's a great fight. And, you know, and that's interesting. You would think, well, Halloween, that's not necessarily the best date to be having all this going on when in the United States it happens to be a Saturday night. Normally it would be a night most people are otherwise occupied with Halloween activities. But, you know, a lot of people are thinking, well, I'm not not really comfortable with parties or trick or treating, and a lot of the normal Halloween activities aren't likely to happen, or at least not in the same way we're used to. So there's a lot of interesting converging forces. And I don't think I mentioned the other part of the public story is so that it does not conflict with UFC 253 that same night, which is the night Khabib's fight is scheduled. So although the way the differences in the card are, they really wouldn't cross over each other time-wise. Now, promotionally, you start having issues splitting the attention span, and be that as it may, it's not official. It's being reported in The Athletic. It's being chattered about on Twitter. So we'll need an official announcement. But it sounds like the fight will be moved. However, the public reasons get stated is to be determined.
Quick comments here on the comments here in the YouTube chat. I want to get you your quick reaction to everybody here. I'm going to post it here in front of the live show. BC Left Hook Danger Boxing Zone mentioned that, and thanks for updating me. He said that Fight Hype was the interview where Mikey Garcia. Well, Mikey said McGregor's fight is Manny Pacquiao, but Manny's next fight but Manny Pacquiao's next fight is me, Mikey Garcia.
Well,
He also mentioned that that he will fight both Mark Masego, who was signed to MP Promotion and was on our podcast, and said that his contract to fight into Manny Pacquiao undercards. Your thoughts on this? Your reaction to what Danger Zone is mentioned here in the live chat?
Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point it's rumor, not fact. It's possible. It's not outside the realm of possibility. Boxers talk a lot. It keeps attention on them. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And one last comment here before we go to the preview fights here for the upcoming weekend. And shout out to Gus, a frequent guest here on Pound for Pound Box Report. He said in the live YouTube chat, he says, "Congratulations, Mike, for reaching 300 episodes. Been a real pleasure listening and an honor being a panelist for so many years alongside Gail, Daniel, Jacob, who used to be a regular, but who can no longer be a guest who cannot be a guest right now for the show because he had to, in short, he switched jobs, and the hours on his new jobs meant he can't be a regular on here for the time being. Scorsese, who used to be a guest on here, and as well as Bo, who I mentioned earlier, head media guy for Three Kings Boxing, and also a frequent guest on the show. Thank you so much for it, Gus. I really appreciate it.
Back at you.
Right, and I wanted to give another shout out to Gus because he mentioned Gus is very good at finding fighters fighters on the come up who many people don't know about now, but turn out to be really good fighters and even world champions and superstars down the road. He was the first one who mentioned Naoya Inoue, mentioned them earlier than just about anybody, be it on the YTBC or any other platforms that talks boxing. He mentioned Inoue way back here on Pound for Pound Box Report in 2013. Inoue was his 2013 Fighter of the Year, Prospect of the Year, excuse me, and he was proved to be kind of a Nostradamus as Inoue the following year and won the world title, and look where he is now. He's also mentioned other fighters who've become world champions and whatnot and really known. And watch out for another Japanese fighter by the name of Shigeoka, who Gus hit me to. He's not fighting now. He's only fought 2 fights, but I've seen both of them. And when it comes to the little guys, particularly at 105, 108, just watch out for them. Recently, a couple weeks back, Gus mentioned a guy by the name of Dennis McCann, 6-foot bantamweight, Gail, Daniel, and Lisa. You from England, you've had other tall bantamweights from that area of the world, particularly Jamie McDonald. I'm here to tell you right now, I've seen McCann on film. He's better than McDonald. Leagues better than McDonald, who went on to become a 2-time world champion at 118, 122, I believe, as well. southpaw. He's a 6 foot, 118-pound version of Nassim Hamed, ladies and gentlemen, and I think he, I think Gus has hit it with another one here, because McCann looks to be really, really good, and I've thought so highly of him that I mentioned him to the fellas at Three Kings Boxing. They gave me the opportunity to write a feature about him for the Prospect Watch segment on their site. So you can go to threekingsboxing.com and just type in Dennis McCann, Dennis McCann in the search engine. You will find my article there. Gus told me about him a couple of weeks ago, and I really think he has real potential here. And you can check out his fights here on YouTube. Let's move on to preview some fights here. I'll go to you, Daniel, and Lisa. Well, I'll go to you, Lisa, if you're familiar with these fighters. Ivan Baranchyk, who was part of the World Boxing Super Series tournament.
Yes.
He's fighting Jose Zepeda. If you remember, Zepeda is the guy who gave Jose Ramirez a really, really tough fight last year in
Yeah.
Ramirez's home area, Fresno, I believe it was. I personally thought Zepeda earned the decision. They gave it to Ramirez. They're fighting each other. Both are ranked in the top 10, Lisa, at 140 pounds by both the WBC as well as Ring Magazine. You mentioned that you got old school principles. Well, as an someone with an old school mentality in terms of the sport, you gotta love the fact that these two men are willing to put it all on the line. They're not protecting nothing. It's not a case of this is an eliminator or anything like that. They see each other. They want the fight. They want an opportunity in the world title. And if it means they got to step in the ring and face each other, so be it.
Right. Yeah. Zepeda is really good. I like him. He's real crafty. Real crafty. I was just watching some film on him because I'm in a league, and it was talking. Andre Ward was talking about how he was saying that he didn't really fully believe in himself until the Jose Ramirez fight, and so maybe this will, push him more in this fight. It's gonna be a real interesting fight because Baranchyk is really unorthodox. I was watching some film on him and I was like, sheesh. I mean, he is strong. He's really in
He's
good
like a
shape.
Russian cinder block.
Yeah. And it's like, but he is wild with the punches. It kind of reminds me of like what Gail was saying earlier about Casimero. He throws some really wild punches. And my concern for Zepeda is if he gets hit with one of them, I don't know. But Zepeda does have pretty he can get out of stuff. He's crafty. That's an interesting style matchup. I don't know where I'm gonna go with that one, but it is pretty interesting. But I guess if he got through Ramirez, one of the best, he can get through with Baranchyk, because Ramirez is a little more fundamentally sound. This Baranchyk is just, when he throws, it's like, what in the heck? Punches coming from all over. And them overhands and all this. Oh, it's wild stuff.
Indeed. Daniel, Gail, a classic clash of styles here. The pressure of Baranchyk fights with a lot of strength versus the skilled and smooth Zepeda, who you have.
That's gonna be because we've seen Baranchyk when it comes to skilled fighters, he does have a hard time at adjusting to them. But His power tends to more often bail him out. Not always, but it always tends to do it. And in this case, I probably could see I could see Baranchyk pulling it out. And more than likely, I could see it, but it'd probably be entertaining fight. The scores might be close, but I could see Baranchyk probably pulling it out. Probably a knockdown, maybe the difference.
Your thoughts, Gail?
Yeah, both these guys with the win can put themselves in position down the road for a world title opportunity. So the motivation for both of them is pretty high. Baranchyk, no shame to him, lost to Josh Taylor in the World Boxing Super Series, and the fight took place in Glasgow, in Taylor's hometown. And unlike what we saw this last weekend, Baranchyk, though he lost, kept it close, got all the way to the final bell, did not embarrass himself. And frequently, when you have a challenging fight like that, the real value is what you've learned from it in the loss. And frequently, a fighter like Baranchyk, with that one tough loss, sort of stretching, his ability, perhaps before he's really ready, ends up paying off big down the road. And I always think about Canelo fighting Mayweather, taking that loss. He never looked back. He learned so much from that fight. I think Baranchyk, to a similar degree, has learned a lot from losing to Taylor. He's had a couple of fights since. He defeated Gabriel Bracero with a stoppage fairly early. And then he came so close to winning. Zepeda then came so close to winning against Ramirez. He's in a similar situation. What did he learn from that fight? It's going to be a very interesting fight, and I think it's going to get so overlooked on a really busy sports weekend. So I hope those of you who are also interested in the baseball playoffs and the NBA and football's return, both pro and college, will carve out just a little time to see Baranchyk and Zepeda. I think it'll be an action-packed fight, and I do think Baranchyk has what it takes to win the fight. But I wouldn't consider it a major upset if it went the other direction either. Just a good 50-50 matchup in a way similar to the best fights this past weekend.
I want to open it up to you guys. I mentioned Zepeda and Baranchyk. There are other fights that's happening also this weekend. Fight in Wales featuring Lee Selby is a DAZN card on Sunday, featuring Buatsi, Chantel Cameron. There's a PBC card in LA featuring prospects or whatever. I'm going to leave it to you guys. Individual, each one of you, if there's a particular fight you want to talk about, I'm going to give you the floor to talk about it right now.
There's a guy this weekend. I can't think of his name. He's fighting. Oh man, it's on the PBC this weekend. He fought a guy named Michael Fox. A short. He's fighting. Never mind. Because if I can't think of the name, I was just watching the film. Can't think of the names.
Gail, I'm gonna try to look it up right quick for you, Lisa. Gail, Daniel, is a fight out there this weekend that you really have your eye on, other than the Baranchyk fight against Zepeda?
Probably the Buatsi fight, mainly because I want to see if he's going to keep the momentum going, keep his stock in the division up, especially with his division light heavyweight being just a little bit stagnant at the moment.
Yeah,
so
the Buatsi
keep his profile up. That's
Yeah,
probably the main fight I went to see because
that is, and the Boazzi card, don't forget, is on Sunday. So that shakes people up. We're not always used to seeing cards on Sunday, but I'm also going to call your attention to one of the fights on the undercard. There is an up-and-coming fighter that some of you have probably not seen, Alen Babic. Alen Babic is from Croatia, just like Filip Hrgović. He's got an 8-round heavyweight fight. He's currently 4-0 with 4 knockouts. Babic goes by the nickname The Savage, and he is a bigger than life personality. Think the Croatian version of Tyson Fury. And he's a lot of fun to watch. His opponent is from Ireland, Niall Kennedy, who I don't know a lot about, 13-1-1, 8 knockouts. But Babic eventually wants to fight his countryman, Hrgović, and I gather there are some very rough feelings between the two of them. So they're heading down the road. And Hrgović just had a victory last weekend on a card that wasn't aired in the United States. So I think we're going to see that clash somewhere down the road. But Babic is just a wild personality. So if you're going to tune in, make sure you're tuning in early enough to catch that undercard. There are several other fights. The one big title fight on that card is a women's fight. Chantal Cameron, who's 12-0, 7 knockouts. This is her first fight being promoted under the Matchroom banner. She is going to put her undefeated record against an undefeated fighter from Brazil. Again, somebody I don't know well, Adriana dos Santos Araujo, 6-0, but she only has 1 knockout. Not super unusual for women. They are fighting at super lightweight for a vacant WBC belt. But Chantal is an actual, honest-to-God knockout fighter as a woman. 7 knockouts in 12 fights for a female pro in a smaller weight division is a lot. So she should be very exciting to watch too. So that's a good little card. And I apologize, listeners, I don't know what the start time is, but look it up on your DAZN schedule for Sunday.
Could you remember the fight that you were talking about? The only person I could think of is Mark Maxayo, who's fighting on that PBC card on the 3rd. Can you remember the fighter's name, Lisa?
Yes, okay, I got it now. Paul Kroll is fighting Lucas Santa Maria, I think. Santa Maria. Santa Maria. Santa Maria fought a guy named Michael Fox not that long ago on FS1 card, I believe. And I kind of like this guy, Santa Maria. It's pretty good.
I'm not that familiar
I mean,
with, give me some details on how he fights, his style.
Well, he's small and he's strong, and he fights real up close to you, kind of like that Bob Weave style, something similar to that. So the guy that he was fighting, Michael Fox, was really tall and lanky, and kind of like a Paul Williams type, but at a smaller weight. And he definitely didn't use his attributes at all. He fights in the pocket. So he's long, lean, and he definitely didn't have the right game plan in that fight. He likes to fight up close, and this guy and the shorter guy, Lucas Santa Maria, likes to crouch down, fight low, and he's strong. He's a strong little guy, but I kind of like how he was fighting there. And
what division is this in, and how many rounds is it scheduled for?
6 or 8,
okay,
something like that. Yeah, but this Paul Kroll, but that's the fight that he had with that guy. But this Paul Kroll, I'm not really familiar with him, but I saw a little film on him. This guy Paul Crow punched a guy and knocked him out. He punched him and the guy fell. And when he fell, it looked like he broke his leg or something, or he might have dislocated his ankle. It was in the first round. It was really freaky because I had never saw anything like that. You got
I
to
see
look that
Gail.
up. Paul Krog, Kroll. He punched the
Yeah,
guy, he knocked him down, and the guy fell and broke his leg or dislocated his ankle. It's weird.
yes. I see Danger Zone Boxing Talk mentioned that he believes that Kroll, he's asking is Kroll 7-0.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So yeah. So he's familiar with him, and I'll be on the lookout for that fight. Um, and in the fighter you had your eye on Santa Maria, and one last bit of note before we start to shut things down. Danger Zone Boxing Talk also mentioning giving a shout out to you, Gail. Says Gail spitting facts. Um, so yeah, I'm going to start shutting the show down. Uh, get your words out right, Mike. I want to thank BC Left Hook Danger Zone Boxing Talk. I want to thank Gus. I want to thank Pigeon Mike and I'm Unrivaled. I don't know what the issue was between you guys. I hope you get those issues resolved earlier in the show. I want to thank you guys. Thank y'all for your questions and your comments. Uh, in terms of fights, I'm looking forward to Bawatsi, of course. We've talked about him multiple times here on Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I have very high thoughts of him. I think he's currently the best prospect over in England. I think he's on the verge of title contention. I think he's I think he's a future world champion. Let me just put it like that. Um, so that's the guy I'm thinking of. I think he should. I've seen his opponent. He's fighting a guy by the name of Kalik. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. 10-round bout. I've seen Kalik on YouTube, fights of his on YouTube, and I just think that Boas is too much Kalik to me. He's tall, but he fights too straight up and down, and he doesn't have enough. In spite of his height, he doesn't move well. He has slow feet, and I don't think he has the fastest hands in the world. I think Boasi will take care of business. I'm going to go around the panel here. I'll always begin the show with ladies first. I'm going to end the show with ladies first, and because Lisa, it's been a long time since you've been here on Pound for Pound Box Report. My apologies, Gail. I'm going to start with Lisa first. For those who want to talk the sweet science, or anything else in between, let the folks know where they can find you.
Oh, I'm not an uploader. I mean, I come on chats or whatever and comment, but I'm not really like I don't do any. I'm not a content creator basically. Uh, I mean, I don't know who knows what the future holds, but at this time, I'm a boxing fan. I love to support boxing. I enjoy boxing. It's my favorite sport. It's the only sport that I watch, and I don't really do the social media thing like that other than YouTube. There's
Oh,
no really way to. I don't upload videos, is what I'm saying. So there's no really way to follow me because I don't do
Okay.
Twitter.
Okay, cool. I want to thank you for joining us on the show, and got to make it a date the next time we do a Ladies Love Boxing episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Got to make it a date and have you on as one of our guests. Um,
Sure.
indeed. Um, Going to you, Gail, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk media, because you do teach and train. You do media training and media teaching on the side, and or for those who want to talk Dancing with the Stars,
yeah.
let the folks know where they can find you.
For all you that don't watch, Crazy Carol Baskin is off the show. Goodbye. See ya. Lisa, thank you for joining us. You just display your intelligence to everybody listening, because boxing Twitter is a complete cesspool. Absolutely crazy making stuff. So you're probably smart.
That and the New
I
York
know.
Stay off there. It's crazy.
that and the New York, New Jersey accent. It's dope. It reminds me of my family from up
Ah,
north.
nice.
Yeah, I'm from New York, New Jersey, definitely.
Nice. Well, see, we got you covered from coast to coast on this show. I'm loving it. Me, oh, you can't get away from me. That's and my main column where I do my serious work when I'm not screwing around with guys at TMZ is at communities.
Yeah, in case you don't know, Lisa, Gail is basically a semi-regular on TMZ now.
Yeah, I just had to get my new TMZ haircut because I'm sure I'll be on next week. Oh my God. Anyway, when I'm talking seriously about the sweet science, which is where I do take my stuff seriously, because I don't ever know when somebody like BC Left Hook Danger Zone is going to keep me in the danger zone because I say something stupid. So I got to watch myself. Thank you very much for listening and keeping me honest so that I have all my facts straight. And my regular column runs in Communities, Digital News, COM, COMM, Digi, DIGI News, comdiginews.com.
I'm going to, and again, thank you for being on the show once again, Gail. I hesitantly go to Daniel here, and the reason is we may have to send him our condolences this evening. As,
I think we need to have paramedics standing by.
His Miami Heat has taken it on the chin this evening
no
against the Lakers.
No,
in game one of the NBA Finals. But for those who want to talk the sweet science,
I just hope for Dragic it isn't an Achilles.
Oh no!
Yeah,
That was a
Dragic,
foul, but
Jimmy Butler, Jimmy Butler.
No, Hero got smacked in the face. Yeah, but
Oh my Lord!
Jimmy Butler hurt his ankle. Dragic may have a torn Achilles, and then Bam hasn't come back in. The same wrist issue from the Celtics series has come back up. But
yeah,
hey,
for those who want to talk,
nobody said this series is going to be easy. So
yeah, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to your beloved Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Rawkuz99, RAWKUZ99. You can go ahead, talk, because we can take it in. But definitely talk into it, because it's a very, very confusing sports world at the moment. Who would have thought we would have been talking the NBA Finals, college football, NFL, the Stanley Cup just finished, and on top of that, anything else that comes crazy from
Major League
this year,
Baseball
2020.
playoff.
I'm expecting Murder Hornets comeback. I'm expecting Murder Hornets to come back.
Daniel, you got my sympathy.
That's probably the main solace. That's probably the main solace.
Oh man. Yeah, sports of all sorts, everybody.
I think the Cubs and their fans are getting PTSD from the fact that the Marlins are leading the series.
At least when you're a fan of the San Diego Padres,
they're thinking Bartman is out there somewhere.
That's so wrong. That's so wrong. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music and fitness, you know what it is with me, Brother JR, at Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to find out all information about Pound for Pound Box Report, for the time being, the blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxreport.wordpress.com. Links to where to find and follow us on social media, where to find the show on all our RSS feed that distribute podcasts to various platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and everything else in between. We're just about everywhere in the podcast realm. Also links to where you can donate to the show. Got a PayPal and Cash Me donation link. Let donation be the next the best nation.
Oh, okay.
And you can
Cool.
also check out the Cash Me and PayPal donation link if you're watching us live on YouTube. Just the description box, the description right below got all that information as well. And last but certainly not least, where you can check out my online coaching page. And I'm serious about this, Daniel. 10 rounds is going to be my next fitness challenge, more than likely mid-October. Um, 10 rounds, the one of the newer fitness programs on Beachbody On Demand, a boxing based fitness program, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 3 days a week, excuse me. It's boxing, cardio related exercises. 2 days a week is weightlifting. Um, None of the workouts are all 40 minutes and under. So for those who are busy with time, it'll give you the sufficient amount of time to get your workout in, either before work or after work. So it's it's challenging, but it's not so strenuous where you think you cannot do it. I think people will really enjoy it. I'm going to drop the challenge and all that on my Instagram, Brother JRSC. Um, Within the next week or so, within the next few days, excuse me. So, and yeah, wink, wink, nod, nod, Daniel. I will be sending you an invitation to join, and I will send an invitation to you, Gail. And if you're interested, Lisa, once we end the show here, just send me your information, and I'll be sure to email you as well. Um, on the next episode, we will do a recap of Zepeda and Baranchyk. We will do a also may talk about uh, the the Zon card featuring Bawasi, featuring Chantel Cameron fighting Dos Santos Orojo. Um, we also may talk about Lee Selby, who's fighting George Cambosis in an IBF lightweight title eliminator, and we will do a preview of Emmanuel Navarrete, who had a pretty good run at 122 pounds as champion. I mean, he's moving up to 126 pounds, fighting for the vacant WBO title there. We will also talk about Sergey Lipinets, who's fighting on Showtime as well. So we will talk about all those bouts. Once again, thank everybody who joined us in the live YouTube chat. BC, I'll just say Danger Zone Boxing Talk. Gus from Corruption and Boxing. Check out his channel. He's doing a collaborative new series on his channel. Um, Pigeon Mike, Unrivaled Boxing Talk and News. I want to thank everybody for their questions and comments. I want to once again thank Lisa for joining us live on the show this evening. Got to have you back on again. And I'm going to hold you up on that date next time we do a Ladies Love Boxing show. I'm going to hold you up on that. Make that
Yes.
a date. I want to thank Daniel. I want to thank Gail. Episode 300 is in the book, y'all. I am your host,
Congrats.
Michael. Thank you so much. Thank you. Episode 300, Pound for Pound Box Report. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
You too.